that was an anticlimactic final last night, or as anticlimactic as a Game 7 can ever be, because Indiana did everything they had to do to win that series except win it. Like, they got 4 out of the 7 games. They outplayed OKC, made OKC play their way, but they lost one of them, the one where OKC made the three threes. And so I don't know whether you guys found that unsatisfying as a championship because Haliburton got hurt, and I so badly wanted to see that young team tested at the end. Show me you're a champion, because every team that's ever had a regular season like they had wins the title easily. Like, loses 3 times in the playoffs max the entire time because they were an overwhelming regular season team and they were there to be taken. You would have had not merely what is already the best Indiana basketball team there has ever been, but you would have had the biggest surprise in the sport's history in a Game 7 on the road. I wanted to see OKC tested that way, and I end up getting disappointed by that final. I know you guys were quick to seize there, but when Kawhi and Paul George were traded, I feel like a lot of people remember that was a lot of picks, and it was signaling a change that at the time I don't think any of us had, hey, and in a few years, Paul George will not have gone very far and his body would break. Kawhi Leonard would have had his body break. Number of different bodies, including one last night, have broken during these playoffs in the pursuit of this thing. And here's OKC with the most valuable asset you can now have in the futurized elements of this league, which is, we can lock everyone in for 7 years at a fixed cost where they can't leave OKC because we can game the system by having all the picks and just create this frenzy because we've got an MVP and we've got a team that was actually too young to win the title. Like that team was great, and that team's youth showed throughout all of that final as Mike's sitting here pining for Siakam when none of us thought that was the Heat standard when Siakam was available.
No, because everybody was doing the thing like, we'll get Bradley Beal instead.
Okay, but
you guys were too good to even consider guys like Pascal Siakam because we were chasing the next rail.
And now you look smart on Anunoby, and you look smart with perimeter two-way players, and yes, the league changed, and I will forgive an 80-year-old man who has revolutionized the way that the leagues change, has gone from throwing in the post to the center to three-point basketball, and then there was another shift here, and they did not keep up by knowing that Indiana would be good enough with Siakam as their second-best player, when I don't think when Siakam went there that any of us thought it was that. We thought that they would get better. We did not think Indiana was a contender because they got Siakam.
It was also a different time in Heat history. They were closer to the success of yesteryear, and they had found that their way of operating was the proper way. I understand why Miami Heat fans fell in love with the way that the Miami Heat do business up until very recently, when it was probably time to capitulate, and they probably went a season and a half, 2 seasons too long. It was the right way. But now these are fair and accurate questions.
Can we talk, though, about what it is that happened last night? Because I don't want to just skip past a championship in the sport by merely dismissing it as, for me, anticlimax. But it was such a bummer not to be able to follow this entire season of storylines to the end of, would Haliburton be able to test them on the road and make OKC earn a championship in a way a team that young normally wouldn't win, even with its regular season credentials. What I was telling you about teams this good during the regular season, all of them whip through the playoffs. They lose a maximum of 3 times the entire playoffs because they're way too good. OKC just won a series where they were a clearly better team that got dragged into the mud, and I wanted to see them have to earn it at the end of Game 7. And as soon as Haliburton went out, and I feel like I'm covering sports wrong if that's my reaction. A champion is a champion. A champion, it's hard to earn a championship. Injuries happen all the time, and just because I was emotionally disappointed that Game 7 didn't provide the narrative I wanted, that series ended and the basketball season ended in a way that felt unsatisfying to me, because I wanted to see the MVP have to win it, not go 8 for 27 and be able to score 100 points and kind of win it, but with everyone out there playing terribly.
But when you look back on champions, you don't care. Time forgets whether they won a series by a sweep or whether they won it in 7 games. And time will eventually forget that they won this one partly because Haliburton got hurt early in the final game. Nobody's going to give OKC as much credit. And when you say that other teams with regular seasons like that dominate more than they did in the playoffs, none of those other teams were as young as OKC. They were learning on the fly how to win, and they did so with an asterisk. The Haliburton asterisk is going to be there for a little bit.
Not really. It doesn't matter. Kawhi won the one in Toronto whether Golden State was hurt or not.
Yeah,
Kawhi won the one in Toronto.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
but Kawhi also did so without being able to have 2 feet leave the ground. Like, look at those highlights. Kawhi was very clearly injured too. He was fighting through it. I think you're selling them short. It wasn't just Haliburton. Yeah, the injury happened earlier in the series and he had to tough it out. But Denver was injured. Denver was not healthy when they went through Denver. Anthony Edwards was dealing with injuries when they went through Minnesota. They got very lucky.
Okay,
This is a second straight year that the NBA champion, who you have questions as to whether or not they can get over the hump and conquer some of the mental aspects, didn't actually have to take on the best shot of any of their competitors.
Okay, they got lucky, but at the same time, when somebody with the best regular season record, they won wire to wire, OKC. Give them that credit. They won wire to wire this season.
Yes.
They owned the season.
Yes, I love what you're doing right now where you're swinging the top of your thermos wildly while you make a point. I think it should be a new signature of yours.
Right.
3 players tore their Achilles here. Mike, you have this way of just saying tough it out, grind it out when, like, that's what it looks like when you're ignoring your body screaming and looking in Game 6 like your body's healthy when it's not healthy, and then other things start breaking.
I'm saying tough it out, grind it out because everyone does this year. I'm just highlighting the fact that for the second straight year, the NBA champion has had a stroke of good luck. Now, you need some good luck, but injuries to the team's best or second best players. You saw what happened with Aaron Gordon. You saw what happened with Anthony Edwards. You see what happened with Haliburton. These are footnotes, much like the Celtics last year, who kept having the favorable luck of running into a team that had an injury to the best player. So, but I do want to talk about the Achilles thing, because this used to be a rare injury in the NBA. It used to be a death sentence.
It's a rare injury in all sports.
And it's not happening to random people now. We had 3 superstars suffer this injury, 2 of which not even in their prime, still entering their primes in Jason Tatum and Tyrese Haliburton. You had Lillard, who everyone kind of expected that. It gave off the vibes the same way that the Haliburton injury did. Oh, this calf strain, if you push through, that usually means it's an Achilles. But this is a really unprecedented time in NBA history to have that catastrophic of an injury happen to 3 superstars, 3 future Hall of Famers.
How about all 3 of them, Tatum, Lillard, and Haliburton, all wear number 0? That's some voodoo.
Eerie.
I don't like it.
So going back, circling back to the NBA, home teams in Game 7s of the finals are now 16-4. So basically 4 out of 5 times, just if you're playing at home. If you got Game 7 at home, that's the biggest advantage to have. And last night, you guys are with me on the idea of OKC is an absolutely historically great regular season team that was ripe for the taking at the end because of all of the youth things that you associate with not being able to win a championship. Stopped because in 4 of the 7 games, they allowed a lesser team to dictate the entirety of the game to them and made them play 4 of their worst games of the season. The result of these finals is that the best team won, but the best team won because they got lucky that Haliburton wasn't around for the second half. That seems like a crazy thing to say. It was a lot harder than it needed to be because that Indiana team is simply not as good as that OKC team. Not at defense at all.
OKC this year is a bit of an outlier in terms of recent history. But the sport, when I was growing up, back to the mid-20 teens, it did probably the best job in making sure that the people that followed the sport knew this was quantifiably the best team. The team that won the championship was always the best team. And you look back, we're alternating championships at a rate that we've never really seen in our lifetimes.
No, we never have seen.
7 straight different champions. Crazy.
It feels a little bit more random. And while the best team won this year, and you make an argument, the best team won last year, they're getting the benefit of injuries that I'm not really sure. I'm sure if we dove into it, maybe I've forgotten some other injuries, but it's odd that injuries are playing a bigger part of the story in these championships lately when we're in a recent era of
What
load
the hell
management.
was that? What was that?
Sneeze,
Was
man.
a sneeze? Because you're tight? We're good.
Okay, I just said no.
Unprofessional.
I didn't. Oh,
Not a professional broadcaster.
Oh,
Dan
wow.
makes everyone comfortable, so they just think that they're hanging out in the room talking to him.
So Kyrie Irving gets injured last year. Jimmy Butler gets injured. These were players that had load management programs around them. We're in an era of load management, and yet in the postseason we had 3 Achilles injuries. You could go entire NBA seasons without seeing that type of injury. Why, in an era where we're so attuned to the athletes' bodies, where we're trying to avoid injury, are you seeing so many more of the arguably the most catastrophic, outside of death, the most catastrophic injury a basketball player could suffer? This was considered a death sentence before, and now we're seeing it all the time routinely when we're trying to stop injuries.
so is 3 a trend? Because Boogie Cousins was never the same after this, and this is one of the places that I remember learning of how it is that potential can go to die, where athleticism can go to die if the Achilles is snapping. In a way, it's a gunshot. People can hear it. Haliburton knows what it is. That's why he starts crying. He knows immediately that is not something he gets up from. We saw this happen to Kevin Durant kind of the same way, right? Where we don't know what these guys have to do to mask to get out there. Like we put a lot under that umbrella if someone's banged up. Like they are just, I can't even imagine what doctors are doing to protect those economies. Just to be clear, right? Did you guys see that an NBA executive said that when Dallas won the lottery, it's worth between $500 million and $1 billion to win the lottery in basketball to your economy because of how, if you get one of these stars and you ride his body for 5 years, you can make a giant business around everything that's happening in this sport and these bodies. Kawhi Leonard told you a while ago, don't trust the doctors. Total mystery, the way that he won a championship injured, but we don't know the lengths these people go to. But when Kevin Durant breaks because of something else that was wrong with his body, when Haliburton breaks that way, where all of us are like, oh, there's the slow motion, that's the Achilles, we know this now, and that looks like a move any of them can make at any time, unless you're hopped up on so much medicine that you're muting all of your body screaming, and when you're not supposed to move that way, you got so many drugs coursing through your body, because you must, right? I'll put all the allegedlys out there, but they'll do anything to play in that game, right? There's no shot that any player in the NBA would not take in order to make sure that they can play in that game last night. We all know this. It's an understood part of it, but it ignores something that now threatens the Pacers next season, and I think it's fair to say, threatens whatever Haliburton becomes next, even if science does allow you to come back from this better. Because Kevin Durant is still a great shooter, but Haliburton does kind of need some of that quickness. Like that injury, that game was being controlled by him with no turnovers last night, and then he leaves the game, and all of a sudden it's 21 turnovers, and that's exactly how OKC is going to win the championship. Wire to wire all season, just stealing the ball from you.
I thought about the Orlando Magic last night, too, when that injury went down. The Orlando Magic made an aggressive move, and people are criticizing the amount of picks they gave up, but they got a player that is exactly what they need. A guy that can cut, a guy that can be a 3-and-D guy, shoots at 40% from three-point range, exact fit for what they need to win in the East. And not only do they make that move, but they're looking at an Eastern Conference that doesn't have Jason Tatum in it anymore, doesn't have Tyrese Haliburton in it anymore due to this injury.
Milwaukee, too.
The Lillard thing is definitely, and they're probably going to get rid of Antetokounmpo because of an Achilles. So you have 3 teams that were atop that Eastern Conference, a conference that was already wide open, that are just totally devastated for next season. Man, I'm surprised Orlando could have given up 2 more first-round picks, and the move would have been justified.
Is 3 a trend? Like, load management, we're going to great lengths to keep these bodies healthy, and all of a sudden you get this particular injury.
Dan, we went 20 years just saying, man, I remember when Isaiah Thomas had that injury, and it was a wrap. Remember that? When Kobe got the Achilles, everyone was like, man, we haven't really seen this since Isaiah Thomas. And since Kobe, so many NBA All-Stars, so many future Hall of Famers have had this injury.
Yes, but with Kobe, it bears noting that whatever the end of Kobe's flame was, he couldn't move the same way at the end. He was always going to be able to get fadeaway jumpers.
No, my point is that when it happened to Kobe, we all like, wow, that never happens in this sport. It certainly never happens to a star player. The last time this happened was in the early 90s. This is something that's foreign. And now the second someone's playing through a calf strain, you're worried about, man, is he going to get Duranted?
It may sound stupid. I'm just going to say it anyway. All these players wear low-top sneakers now. Does that mean anything?
There is a theory. I Googled it, so I'm sure there's a lot of artificial intelligence, but a lot of the stuff that came back was the shoes have changed, and there's an argument to be made. Now, a lot of these injuries have happened in this postseason, but that load management actually hurts. This is a tendon.
Of course it hurts.
This is a tendon that needs to be stretched and constantly be active to build up
And the game
strength.
is played faster than it's ever been played.
So if you're taking several days off and you allow that tendon to actually tighten back up, you're acting against the best interest.
More back-to-backs.